What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Terror Table, a horror movie podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Oliver, and today I have a very special episode planned because I'm welcoming my friends Bethany Watson and Dennis Cahlo to the show.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, Mitch.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thanks for inviting us to the Terror Table. It's a beautiful table you have here.
You've said it so lovely. Look at all the ankles.
Man, your guys' recording room is just amazing. We're gonna get into all of that. Like, I want to just let our listeners know who you guys are and what the kind of stuff you create. But you guys are you're constantly creating content. And,
we're trying.
And it's an amazing thing. And you guys are the perfect personalities to do it. But your recording room, and we're gonna of course talk about Dennis's new YouTube channel and all the cool stuff that you guys got going on. But I'm so jealous of your setup. You guys,
Dennis did all of this.
You too can achieve this with just some Amazon and a dream. So
yeah. Well, there's so many things to talk about. But a couple of weeks ago, I shared a reel that Dennis had posted on Instagram, and it was your writing room, and you have it just all Twin Peaks out. And I was like, oh my God, that if there's a heaven, that's what it looks like to me.
Yep. And I got to add my dream computer, which was a vintage Macintosh SE, which is one of the tiny little Macintoshes from 1988, which is period perfect for Twin Peaks, 88, 89, 90. They would probably have had that in the station. And I got it tricked out. So now it's future proofed and it works. And I have a dot matrix printer, and that's what I use I type out all my YouTube scripts on. So it's just a glorified word processor, but I love it.
It's so great. And this is our first time living together. We just moved in together into this house. And I didn't fully understand that Dennis art decorates his life. And so I'm reaping the benefits of this beautiful streaming room where he had a vision, and it's all this is an audio medium. So just picture Blade Runner, and that's what our background looks like. It's all just neon tubes and lights, and I'm very grateful.
I call it Japanese neon cult.
Yeah.
That's my whole thing.
Yeah.
That's a Japanese neon cult. It's Akira meets Blade Runner meets some sort
Tron.
of weird 80s cult movie that doesn't exist yet. You know?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing though, is you're both creative types. We of course got to know each other through playing both of our short films played Portland Horror Festival.
Yes.
And I felt there's a couple people on that panel that we just kind of connected with, and you guys we instantly started talking. And of course I love your film Doors, which it's a short film that's currently doing the festival circuit. I believe you guys are playing Ethereal next. Is that where you're playing next?
Yeah,
that's right.
And we got Peephole in Mexico, which is really a really great genre. Awesome. We got these really. It was funny because Lonely Hearts did really well. The one previous to this, we got into Nashville Film Festival and all these sort of mainstream festivals, and then we got into a few genre festivals. But Doors got into the real underground weirdo things, and I couldn't be more proud. I'm like, this is so great. We got rejected from all the major ones, but the weirdos love us, and I was like, that's fine with me. I'm good with that.
Totally. And that's just how it goes with the festival circuit too. I was doing the same thing right now, and it's amazing. There's ones that are giving us a shot where I'm like, whoa, I didn't think that they would ever consider us. And then the small, it's such a crapshoot. You never know.
Never know.
And by the way, bravo on The Druid's Hand. I've seen it and I love it. It's so good for a first film. For a first short film, it is so good. And you can tell that you're the real deal and you understand the history of horror just from watching the film itself. It's so wonderful, and congrats on what you going to Scream Fest, right? It was just insane at the Grauman's Chinese Theater. Dude,
you're leaving tomorrow, right?
less than 32 hours. I think 32 hours. Who's counting though?
No one's counting. It's just a blind panic at this point.
Exactly.
No, so we're grateful. We're grateful to be with you today.
Oh man, I really appreciate that. And it's funny because I was gonna say the exact same thing about watching Doors, and I saw Lonely Hearts for the first time today, which you can watch on YouTube. It's available for anyone, and it's a 16-minute short film, and oh my God, it is so good. It is so good. It's so good. And I'm not just saying that because you guys are my friends and you're here, but it's it's the same. You can tell that you both have such an understanding of genre, and I'm excited to just dig into all the different facets of the world that inspired you, because I can see some giallo in there, specifically in Doors too, because I know Dennis, you shot that one yourself. The camera's so energetic. And
oh, that's such a good way to put it.
That was
That's so nice.
I wish I knew to say things like that.
Yeah.
I shot Lonely Hearts too. So I shoot all my films, you know, and the cinematographer for all my work. I always said that there's only a few people that can do it, but I put myself in that to save money. And also I'm like, I am just so specific about what I want. I'm like, I like to shoot things a specific way, and I shoot very high contrast. So like I'm going in knowing I'm going to be blasting out the contrast later to make it have more of a film feel, and really make rich. So there's a specific way I shoot it that I'm like, if I tried to explain this to someone who went to film school and studied cinematography, they wouldn't understand what I'm doing, and they try to like argue it down, and I'd be like, no, trust me, you know. So it's like, to save time, I'm just gonna fucking shoot it myself.
And with Doors, it was COVID, so we only had each other. Like we were each other's pod, and so we just shot Doors, which is, for those listening who, you know, don't know what it is, it's a 4-minute film about this woman who hears a lot of knocking, and her apartment has a bunch of doors. And we were in the midst of lockdown, and everyone, you know, makes their COVID movie. And so we're like, well, we have this apartment, it's got a lot of doors, we have each other, let's make a movie.
Yeah.
And
Door City over here.
Yeah,
exactly.
And we didn't, it's the thing that I love about it is that was my apartment, and we didn't use all the doors. Like there were more doors than we showed on camera, but it's just a really strange railroad apartment with tons of doors.
Yeah.
So that was our movie.
Yeah, and as corny as it sounds, I know it's gonna come off cheesy, but it's just so heartwarming to see that you guys found each other, because you guys are kind of perfect. You guys are perfect for, especially like just seeing your creative side and how you guys meld together. And like Bethany, like especially in Lonely Hearts, you get to really see your acting chops, and like you're so charming and fun in that film, and like it takes such a turn, and it's something that I know our listener base would be a big fan of.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's great. So congratulations to both of you, and I'm just honored to have gotten to know you guys. And
thank you, Mitch.
We're so thrilled. I realized today I still hadn't followed you on Instagram. I was like, what is wrong with me? I was so upset at myself. It was like one of those really embarrassing when you've known someone for a while and you realize you don't follow.
I know. I did it with someone that I've known for 20 years.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, I don't fucking follow you. Oh,
so this is my official apology.
Oh,
but you've also said you're not very good at Instagram.
I'm awful at Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm
not trying to call you out here.
No, but it should be known that I'm awful. I can act, but I'm terrible at Instagram.
Well, you've got quite the following, which is pretty damn impressive for someone who's not into you're not good at Instagram.
My previous life as a radio personality was very good to me in terms of social media following.
That checks out so much. So I didn't know that about you, that you're a radio personality, and like you had mentioned that you do podcasting and everything like that. Like let's touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So I worked in radio for 10 years. I did radio in Minneapolis at a show called Dave Ryan in the Morning Show. And I had just gotten into radio because I had a theater background and an improv background, but I had a repetitive work stress injury that I got from working at Starbucks. So like I couldn't like stand for a few months. And so that meant I couldn't get like a regular service industry job, which meant I couldn't audition because I couldn't have flexible hours. So I ended up working at a bank, and then I realized I needed to do something more creative with my life. So my local radio station had posted they were hiring for a co-host. So I just like went for it and ended up getting it. And that for 4 years, and then moved to New York and did radio in New York City for 4.5 years. At a show called Elvis Duran in the Morning Show on Z100 locally in New York, but we were syndicated. And so because of that, I was able to get sort of this following on social media, which was super, super nice. And a lot of them stayed with me when I decided to, end my radio career and kind of move back into more of an official performance type career. And that's when Dennis and I met, was after I left radio. And that was one of the things that attracted me to Dennis, was that he didn't know or care about my previous job. He just knew me as like Bethany, this actress. And I was very it was nice to meet somebody who was just like, oh, you act? That's great. And it wasn't
Let's talk about acting.
Yeah. Let's talk about acting.
I was doing a podcast at the time that doesn't exist anymore called the Cahlo Picture Show, where I was like focused on filmmakers and indie filmmakers. And I was trying to be like the Mark Maron of filmmakers, where I would like invite filmmakers over that no one really knew and like talk to them and talk to them. It didn't really work out. It was like I wasn't catching on. But the best thing was I met her from it. And we started dating shortly afterward.
Yeah.
And we were like, great, let's make. And then I came up with this idea I was telling you about all these ideas for movies I had. And then I came up with Lonely Hearts one day and you were like, let's do that one.
Yeah.
And before this, like before Lonely Hearts, it's funny because both of us were sort of we would do dramas, comedies, whatever. Now I have gone full blown horror. I feel like once you dip your toe into it, it's hard to come out of it. And I didn't realize how much, horror was in my DNA, which is a lot of my YouTube series is about, was that when I was younger, that's all I watched.
Yeah.
That's all that was on. You know what I mean? Especially like The Gate, our great neighbors from the north produced The Gate. And like that's one of the that was a formidable movie for me. You know, and so I didn't realize it until I did Lonely Hearts. I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I just got to do horror.
And even your earlier films, Dennis, all had like an aspect of horror to them.
Well, the Weekend, no, The Weekend was
dark.
It was dark.
There's some darkness there.
The Weekend's very dark. Yeah.
Death and Disco Fries involves the afterlife.
Yeah,
so it's like
a guy dies and then and then he's got one last regret to solve solve. Whatever.
It's always been there.
It was always there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always there.
Yeah.
But then after Lonely Hearts, I was like, fuck this. This is so because it was so much fun. It's so free. Can we curse on the podcast?
Absolutely.
Great. So like I was like, fuck this. And I just like went full blown. Mitch, I think you know what that's like. I mean, you were a horror guy before making The Druid's Hand. And I think that when you are in that world, you realize how freeing it is and what you can do within it and how much you can do within it. And I do feel it's one of the last genres that people go out to the movies to see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
And you don't have to have a superhero in it. It doesn't have to be part of a multiverse. You can just put out a horror movie and it'll make money and people will go into theaters and be like, I love this communally, you know?
Yeah. You get so creative with it. There's so many options within the genre. Like there's like really there's no boundary of what you can and can't do in it. And the amount that you're able to do on like, people in our position trying to make stuff on a very shoestring budget or with no budget, and like seeing how, obviously Doors, you had mentioned that came out of the pandemic, and like you guys just made a film in your small apartment, and you did that in Lonely Hearts as well. And it's awesome just seeing what kind of stuff you can come up with limited resources. That's what makes really cool, interesting stories.
Yeah. I wish I could remember who said this. I heard it on a podcast. I think it was the Ruined podcast. But they were talking about horror versus other genres. And one of the wonderful things about horror is that you can have a micro budget and make something that audiences are willing to see and that can do super well. You don't see a lot of low budget rom-coms like blow up. You don't see a lot of low budget action movies blow up and do really well, but you do see a lot of low budget horror movies blow up and do really well.
Absolutely.
And there's something about, I think the genre is forgiving in a way. You can be grittier because horror is gritty, but also I think the audiences are so enthusiastic in a way that other genre audiences aren't.
That was another reason too. And to bring it back to the audiences, that's why I do it. When we went out and we actually like got to see Lonely Hearts with a crowd of people, and I saw how the horror community reacted, I said, this is the audience I want to give my work to.
Yeah.
I trying to please anyone else is like kind of really tough. And they were enthusiastic. They wanted to know what we were doing next. They were like, what else are you doing? What are you up to? They wanted to talk to us. They were interested. I was like, oh my God, you try to get a drama crowd like this. They were raising hands. They were asking questions. I was like, this is wonderful. Not to knock other crowds, but I feel like genre crowds are more passionate. They're more interested in like the filmmakers. Much more engaged. Yeah.
Totally.
And lovely people.
So great.
Just the loveliest horror people are the loveliest people.
So many of them are depressed or on meds. And it's like, I see you, like so many horror
but also
people,
very
but so
kind,
lovely.
Kind people. And I was like, wow, this is where we want to be.
Like just like the best shoes, like the coolest clothes, and just lovely. Like I've known for years, we're not, Dennis and I aren't planning on having children, but like I've always thought if you are a parent you have the talk with your kid. Like if you ever get lost, find so-and-so, find like a helper, find a store employee. I would say like find the goth, find like the horror person, because they're probably the sweetest and most sensitive.
Yeah.
And will make sure that you're okay.
Yep.
Yeah, no, totally agree. It's a great world to live in. And that's, like you guys are content creators, just like what we're doing here with this podcast. Like how I started this podcast 6 years ago with my friend Boozy and Diego. And I started doing it because I was living in the prairies, and it was a place where there was not really a creative outlet for me. I was plumbing at the time and my soul was just crushed, and I needed an outlet. And then it's like you guys, like you start meeting people, other creatives, and you all just kind of attract each other, and you build such a, supportive community. And it's a great place to be. And you have to but the hardest part is putting yourself out there and knowing that people can be as critical and as mean and vicious about what you're doing when you're putting yourself out there out of your comfort zone. But it's super rewarding when you realize that, there's a lot more supportive people out there than not. And that's something you guys are doing right now. So I want to talk a little bit about all the content that you guys are creating.
Sure.
You guys are always creating. You guys work so hard.
Monetizing our relationship.
We do. We work 6 days a week.
Yep.
Yeah, we literally work 6 days a week now. We decided to take yesterday off.
Which was our first day off in a long time.
Which I was like, I gotta bring my camera. I can't. So really, we didn't take a day off.
But yeah, we're trying really hard to, to live in, not to like bring it down, but I guess that's always what I do. Like live in a world where, no one knows where money's gonna come from. Like things are just tough and hard, and we just kind of decided, let's just kind of condense our life. Like let's move out of the city. Let's kind of create a bunker situation in a house where we can just have a place where we just create everything. And
not rely on anyone. We were like, we don't want to rely on anyone. We didn't want to rely on other people's time and money. So we were like, how can we do this with ourselves, and what can we start with first? So we kind of came up with a plan. I was like, well, I want to work on a YouTube series about, I love the new YouTube series is like my love. Like it is so much fun to make and dig into old films that I love and some people haven't heard of. And that was one plan, is I'm going to work on my YouTube series.
Yeah.
We were going to work on more short films, more content for our Patreon, which includes like, short films as well. We're working on a feature right now. But we really did want to be independent creators. And part of that was getting out of the city to a place where we could more afford.
Yeah.
And that was peaceful. Like we wanted to go to somewhere that was like peaceful and nice.
Had space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's been the biggest joy, has been moving out of the city, being able to breathe a little bit and kind of look around and really decide, what do we want to focus our time on? Because we don't know what the future holds, but we want to make sure that whatever we do, we can stand behind and be really proud of, and say, okay, look, even if this never hits, like we can look back at it and say, God, but the quality is really good.
Right. Our focus is always the quality has to stand up to whatever's being put out right now.
And hopefully it hits, and we would love it to hit. And if someone has money, we would love to help you spend it. But like, we also mostly want to be really proud of what we do.
Yeah.
So like, because you guys do Twitch streams and everything, like let's talk a little bit about that. Like when does this usually happen? How do you guys go about like planning? Because I know you guys do a lot of like whenever I see like on Instagram, it's like playing Breath of the Wild tonight. Like let's talk about that.
So Twitch came out of a period of mourning for both of us.
Yes.
We had lost one of our cats.
One of our beloved
sweet cats. He passed away suddenly. I was like, out of nowhere. And Bethany said, I am scooping up Minerva, the surviving cat.
Yeah.
I'm going to come over to your house. This is when we lived separately. I'm going to come over to your house because I can't be alone right now. I said, okay, fine. And one of the things that she did while she was there to take her mind off of things was she plugged in my old Sega Genesis and was just playing Baby's Day Out.
Mitch, have you ever played Baby's Day Out?
Oh, yeah.
That game is insane and bad. Yeah. Gentle listener, if you've never played Baby's Day Out, this is a bad game. This is a game that was sort of half given up on, where you play an angel that floats around and you're just a smiley face with wings, and the mechanics don't super work very well. And your job is to keep this baby who's crawling around
alive
from getting scooped up by hitmen.
Well, it's based on a film.
I think they made the film based on the game.
I didn't know that.
Anyway, it's a bad game.
So, and as I'm sitting there in the other room, I'm listening to her just comment on the film.
Like, damn you, baby!
Yeah, she's like, baby,
baby,
come on, baby,
get over here, baby.
So I said to her, I go, holy shit! And I had a Twitch account. I never used it. I just had it for I was like, I want to get my name on every platform so no one takes it.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. So I have this Twitch account. I was like, honey, let's just start streaming. Let's just start streaming. And we did it. And our first one, we had it was weird. It didn't seem a lot at the time, but we had 16 or 20 people watching. We were like, oh, that's pretty good.
Bad.
And we just kept doing it. And I was like, let's play more horror games. And then we started figuring out the vibe. So we were like, well, we're kind of idiots. So we're two idiots. Yeah. So it's two idiots play on Thursdays, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. EST.
Yep.
And then I stream on Tuesdays solo from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. EST. And I'm usually streaming, I'm doing Alien Isolation right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to do Ghostbusters after that.
Which is great.
And then we're streaming Little Nightmares right now, which is fantastic. So
that's awesome. Well, you guys have the personalities to do it. That's there's so many people out there. Even when Twitch just came out, it's wait a minute, people are watching people play video games.
Yeah.
But then you think it sounds so ridiculous. But then you think about some of the best nights you've ever had, or at least for myself, is being in a room with your friends and playing a game or commenting on a movie, watching it. And it makes total sense that platform is hit so hard. And you guys are the perfect people to be doing it. So that's really cool that's working out.
Thank you. We have fun. And neither of Dennis, you're better than I am. Neither of us are great gamers.
Yeah, I'm okay.
But we're enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And we say that we're your internet aunt and uncle. And anytime a new viewer joins us, we tell them we're very proud of them because, life is hard and we're proud of you for showing up. And our chat blows up with people saying how proud they are of the new person. And it's just we don't know what we're doing, but boy, we're excited to be here.
Yeah.
We had a friend say, we're going to, I'll raid your channel on Twitch. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but we'll do it right back to you. We're real happy.
And I was like, no, Bethany, no, we don't know how to do it yet.
Sure, we'll figure it out.
But we have so much fun on Twitch. And it's building out a community. A lot of what I started to realize too was if we're making films, we have to have a community behind us besides the ones that we're gaining from going to see the films or happening upon the films. If you have a steady community or a strong community, they will go with you.
Yeah.
So it's so when we are ready to release our feature, we could be like, hey, community, go out and support. No matter how many of you go, just go out and support it in any way you can.
Yeah.
So we didn't realize how important it was to have an online community that's very positive and not filled with I hate to use the word toxic. I think that word's used too much now to describe things and fans, which is unfair. But just
super judgy or entitled and
right. We want to keep it real positive.
Well,
we're horror people.
And it's it sounds hokey to some people to say this, but for me, it's positive manifestation, and it's that putting that type of good energy out there, and it's just going to come right back to you. It depends what kind of vibe you're trying to put out into the universe. You're going to receive the same thing back. So I think it's really important. That's awesome. And before we just start just talking all about horror movies, I want to touch on Dennis's new YouTube channel. Which I'm so happy you sent me a screener of it before you put it out. But the first episode is all about Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, one of my faves. I'm a big fan of that film as well. And there are so many, like I said, there are so many people out there putting out content, and even what we're doing here, I'm like, well, everyone listen to my opinions on horror movies. And it's there's so many people out there doing it, but there is something so fresh about what you're doing, Dennis. And I mean, your first episode is awesome, and it's really insightful. And even if you think that you know everything about Halloween 3, which there's a lot of the horror community, people are just always trying to learn as much as they can about this kind of stuff. But I learned some things from your video, and it was just the way it was presented. It's great. Let's talk about
that. That's awesome, Mitch. First of all, to hear from a fellow horror person that they liked it, and I'm getting getting a lot of great feedback. And I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is exciting. You know, and I told Bethany, I said, I'll probably get like 50 views. And now it's up to like almost 300.
Yeah, which
and
is
like,
great for like a
for a
first,
first time,
video
it
on a
starts.
first thing. Yeah.
It's how it all starts. I mean, I know
Yeah.
people are like, all right, well, it's not in the thousands, but you know, I just started. I love it. I actually love making documentaries. It's not what I want to do, you know, for the rest of my life, but I enjoy making short form content too. So I was like, what can I do that's sort of, you know, in the wheelhouse of horror? Because a lot of the stuff that I put out there is not like with Bethany is sometimes not horror based. And we do have like a good community that is like not from the horror community. I was like, I really want to tap into the horror community and give something to them. And so my name could actually also be associated with horror as well. So I said, well, I would love to do something where I'm talking about the films that shaped me. So they're not critiques. They're not, I say it at the beginning, like I am not a critic. I am not a scholar. I'm not an expert. I am just someone who loves to talk about horror. And so what I wanted to do is talk about how these movies shaped me when I was younger, and maybe bring something new to the table, you know, maybe something you haven't heard before. And I realized that I'm someone who loves the B-sides instead of the A-sides. So I like the movies that most people have never heard of. Like, and I think that that's, but a lot of people have heard of Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. So I said, the first film I'm going to start with, I'll actually get people in with the most popular, you know, black sheep of a franchise ever of all time, because it has such a huge following now and people love it and realize it's so good. And it's one of my favorite films of all, like ever. It's just so great. It's such a special place in my heart. And I think it's so underrated. And now like my next episode is going to be The Haunting of Julia, which people, no one, or Full Circle is also known as, with Mia Farrow. Richard Longcrane directed it. It's a fantastic film. Again, a Canadian co-production. So it was made by a Canadian producer as well as a British. And it is just a haunting, like before, I always say this, before everyone thought A24 invented trauma horror, there was trauma horror and it existed. And in the 70s, there was a ton of it. But if you know, you have like Don't Look Now, Let's
Scare Jessica to Death.
Let's Scare Jessica to Death, which is one of the best ones ever. Best ones ever. And so like, I'm trying to also with the YouTube channels, create historical content for people that actually tells people of these films that they may not know of, or they're like, oh, I've heard of this, but I don't have all the information on it. I want to preserve it. It's like how vintage tech guys go and like talk about old computers. That's how I want to talk about these movies and have a space on the internet where they are preserved historically. And doing like The Haunting of Julia was such a huge thing for me because I couldn't find anything. And then I just kept looking and I finally found like this big chunk of an interview with Richard Longcrane where he talks about the whole film. And I was like, that's why I love doing this. It's like a detective work, you know?
Yeah.
So
no, totally. And like one of the many things that sets you apart from the other people doing it out there, and like for people who like, you know, like to think that you know a lot about horror, you're like, well, what am I going to get out of watching this and watching this guy just talk about this? It's the production quality, and that you're a filmmaker. So you can see your editing chops, and like it's something you see in Lonely Hearts and Indoors, and then like the amount of work that you put into your YouTube channel is so admirable. And
thank you.
Be proud of those 300 views, because that's not going to be like that for much longer. I truly do believe that.
Mitch.
Like, you gotta just keep putting it out, because like, man, you got something there. You're creating something cool. So
thank you.
Hope everyone can check that out. Do you want to plug what the channel's called and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually don't have a name for the series. I was thinking of calling it like Crimson Celluloid, but it's just youtube.com/D Cahlo, Cahlo, D like Dennis, Cahlo. And you can find everything there. My short films, Lonely Hearts there. Doors will premiere there.
Yeah,
for sure. And when we put this in the show notes, and also if you want to go to our Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, there'll be links there as well.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, well, yeah, like let's go back. So we already talked a little bit about Halloween 3, but like, Bethany, can you tell us like what was your first experience with the genre? And like, because you're clearly a fan.
Such a fan. It's interesting because I had a similar journey to Dennis, where I realized later that I had always loved horror films, but then sort of got away from that kind of identity and sort of tried to fit in different areas. And working in radio, you have to be a little bit more palatable to a large audience. So my spooky side kind of fell away. But I realized that, you know, when I was in high school, I was a goth for a year and wore all black. I wore like this long.
You've been a goth since birth.
Well, yeah,
please.
but like it really came out when I was like 17, and I walked around with, you know, all black, a big crucifix hanging around my neck. But my first toe dip into horror was when my parents showed me the movie Clue, which is not a horror film.
Oh yeah.
But when you are 5 or whatever I was, there's, you know, it's a big creepy Victorian mansion. A woman gets a bullet through the head and you see the bullet hole, which is tame. There's no blood, but it's still, for a little kid, pretty dramatic. Spooky music. There's a thunderclap. There's a chandelier falls. And I just remember thinking, this makes me uncomfortable and I love it. And I couldn't figure out why I was okay being scared, but it was like the perfect movie to sort of take my tiny chubby little hand and like walk me into the world of horror. And then all of these movies I was introduced to in my teen years, which were like the big teen horror films, which was like Blair Witch, Scream, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, the forgotten stepchild of the genre. I loved The Faculty, like all of those movies, which then taught me about, okay, these are making references to other movies you need to see. And then I started renting, you know, Last House on the Left and like all of these really.
The Thing is one. It's like your favorite horror movie of all time.
I love The Thing. So it really was something that I had from a very young age. And I think it's because my dad really liked comedy and my mom really likes mystery novels. She loves Agatha Christie. She introduced me to Miss Marple, and I was also raised on what's the show called, Murder, She Wrote, right? So like it's this combination of my dad knowing these like darker comedic references and also being able to recommend like Last House on the Left, and my mom loving the more cozy mystery side of things, which kind of formed who I am today.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we talk about our relationship, like Bethany is the Victorian haunted mansion, and I am the Italian. I am like the Italian globby blood gore guy. Like that's like you are such. You even have like the Bela Lugosi book that you gave me. You're like, oh, I had this in college.
I didn't realize I had like I think younger than that. I just had a Bela Lugosi biography and I had like a book of vampires, just all of this stuff that I didn't realize. And then going back through some old childhood stuff, I had written a story in second grade about a group of ghosts that murdered a girl. And my teacher was like, hey, wonderful. Like, so it's always kind of been in there, in a really fun way.
Yeah, I think Lonely Hearts was the thing that like freed us from any sort of shackles that we thought we had creatively. It was just like, that was the moment that freed us. And, you know, like I had my moment where I like slicked my hair back, put a gray streak in, and I was like, I am fully formed.
I am final form.
It was like the origin moment, you know?
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I grew up with all the same stuff, and it's funny. I have that same very similar story. When I was in grade 4, we had to do like a creative writing assignment, and I wrote a slasher story. I was in grade 4, and it was like, because I was obsessed with Scream and Teaching Miss Tingle and The Faculty. Like famously, The Faculty poster in my bedroom replaced my Backstreet Boys poster. That's where I changed.
Whoa,
that's you.
That's a big.
Yeah, it was big time. But then I remember like even my teacher was just like, had to call my mom and my dad being like, this is like, you know, writing about people being murdered. Like, where is this coming from? But also it's really well written.
Yeah. Like, this is frightening and also impressive.
It's interesting too, because like as a parent, I wonder what it's like to have a spooky kid. Excuse me. Because like, you know, you have to be, it's that fine line of like, are they just spooky and into horror? Or are they like, do they want to do this?
Yeah.
You
like,
know,
did something happen? Yeah. Or are they okay?
Yeah.
They're watching The Good Son and just side-eyeing you.
Whereas if that was us, we'd be like, yo, hell yeah.
Exactly.
Go with that. Can I use this?
Do you see yourself as the Elijah Wood in this situation, or are you more of a Culkin? Which one are you identifying with?
Mark, don't fuck with me. God,
such a good movie.
It's so great.
Such a good movie.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, cool. Well, then Dennis, like clearly, like I'd mentioned, you even said that you have these Italian leanings. Like I look at like so much of your work, and I'm like, man, this guy loves Argento. I love Argento.
He does too.
And
I would say even more so, I would say Bava. Like Bava is like my he's my like God, Excuse me, I'm sorry. I take it.
He gets real emotional when he talks about Bava.
No, that's a perfect timing, because like I haven't even mentioned it, but we're gonna cap this episode off on a discussion on the City of the Dead or Horror Hotel. But that that's like my go-to stuff in the spooky season, is to watch the really old classic horror. And I watched Black Sabbath for the first time.
Hell yeah!
Like this week, it was my first time, and it's one of Bava's famous films. But
I'm sorry,
I want to hear about like your history with horror, because you can see your Italian leanings, but let's hear all about it.
So it started when I was young. I mean, again, that's the point of the YouTube series, is going back and looking at how these films formed me. And the crazy thing is that when I was growing up, I'm 45, so I grew up in the 80s. And we had 3 channels. So it was like 4 channels, right? So you had channel 5, channel 9, channel 11, channel 13 on a Saturday afternoon. And channel 9, you knew you were getting like Shaolin Warriors all day. That's like how the Wu-Tang formed. Like they bonded over those movies that we used to, and it was the same thing. We used to get that. Channel 13 was like, Bob Vila. Channel 5, channel 11, crapshoot. Either on channel 5 or channel 11, you would get The Haunting of Julia, or you would get Night of the Creeps, or you would get The Blob, 1988. You would get all of these films that they got the rights to show on TV. And there I was, young Dennis, like watching all of these, ingesting all of these. Halloween 3, too. That one I saw before I saw the rest of the series. So I didn't know. I was like, Halloween 3, okay, I guess the rest of the series is like this,
Yeah.
And then I see this Michael Myers guy. I'm like, who the fuck is this? I was like, where are the
What's
robots?
he doing in my franchise?
Yeah, I was like, what is he doing in my franchise? Like, I didn't get the reference to the film they were watching. I was like, oh, Halloween. Okay, that must have been the first one about some guy in a mask. So that's where it started. And then, and then I started to get really into music. I wanted to be a film director for years when I was a kid. I was always fascinated, but then I got sort of sucked into music. My band, The Realistics, was really big in like the early 2000s in New York City. And I strayed away from filmmaking. And then I came back to it later in life. And so I started to do like dramas. I did a drama, and then I did a romantic comedy short, The Weekend and Death and Disco Fries. And then I did Lonely Hearts with Bethany, and that's when it all sort of came together. And I realized, no, horror was always with me. It was there for me, comforting me when I was younger, scaring me to death, but also like opening me up to these worlds that are kind of like ultimate freedom. And so I just went into that. And then, you dig back into your past as you look forward, and you say, okay, well, here are the films I loved. I loved, Bava films. Like Bava films came much later for me, somewhere in my like 20s, when I started going like art house films. I was living in New York City. I would go to see I go to Film Forum. I would go to IFC. And they would have, during Halloween, they would have these Bava festivals, and they would show all of his films. I got to see Black Sunday, and, Planet of the Vampires is one of the best ones, And then I would get into Argento and be like, oh my God, the Italians were crazy. I'm Italian myself. So like at some point I said, I don't want to be Fellini anymore. I want to be Bava, You just, that thing, that light bulb goes off in your head. So there's just something about the genre. It's something I always go to it. I always put it on. I always live in that world, and I don't know. I just love it. I absolutely love it. It's become all encompassing since 2019.
Yeah.
But it was always there for me, just waiting. Like, hey, buddy, I'm here for whenever you need me.
Even like looking back at old pictures from when you were touring with the Realistics, there was always kind of a dark spooky boy side to you, even when you were dressing less like that. There was always a tinge of spooky boy, of dark boy to you. And so you can see it was always just kind of there.
Yeah, it was always bubbling up.
Yeah.
I always say it's not until you get the hair right.
Yeah. Once the hair comes, then you're all set.
Then you're fine. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And before we start talking about like City of the Dead, have you guys been seeing what have you been? It's spooky season. It's Halloween. It's you guys sent me a picture, or Dennis sent me a picture. You had your fireplace going and you were watching City of the Dead. What's the kind of stuff you guys been watching recently?
Mitch, last night we watched Garfield's Halloween special, the most traumatizing movie ever made.
So yeah, one of the things I'm going to do in my YouTube series is traumatizing kids Halloween specials.
Got to do Ernest Scared Stupid. That was absolutely a huge one for me, but like that movie straight up traumatized me.
So
Large Marge, Pee Wee Herman, that traumatized kids for life. I remember first seeing that, go, what the fuck? Yeah. So we did cartoons last night after the City of the Dead.
Yeah, so we did Disney's Mr. Toad and The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad or whatever.
Love it.
So we fast forwarded through Mr. Toad because Mr. Toad is just a psychopath. And we went right to Ichabod, and that it's like the first half of that cartoon is just upsetting because it's just about how Ichabod Crane is a perv and all the ladies in town want to sleep with him despite how ugly he is.
It's crazy.
It's so strange. But then once you get to he's coming home from the party and the headless horseman is chasing him, there's nothing that gets you into the mood for Halloween more than that movie. And then we watched Garfield's Halloween special, which is
that one is like your trauma.
A motion picture that I saw exactly once growing up. It was too scary. And then last year, Dennis made me watch it again. So for the second time my entire life. And I had this like goosh, like sense memory just being hit over the head with like forgotten traumas of these ghost pirates, like coming, like swimming, flashing, almost strobing out of the water and coming into this abandoned Victorian house that Odie and Garfield are like
and the
inside.
Dude in the chair.
The dude in the chair
the
who's
drool that
animated
off his mouth.
in a totally different way, just horrifyingly traumatic. So we watched it again last night. And again, it was just awful. But again, it's like such a special kind of horrible.
And this is my time to program mini film festivals for us at night. So like I always do, like I love doing double features. And I always said, I think that if I was programming for like an art house film festival or whatever, or like a film festival, an art house theater, I would definitely do like The Haunting of Julia and The Babadook.
Yes.
That's a perfect double feature. Yep. That is just a perfect double feature.
Yep.
So like what we're doing is I'm like, we're going to do cartoons and we're going to do the feature. So last night we did the opposite of that. We did the cartoons after the feature.
Yeah.
But like tonight, I want to do Peanuts, the Peanuts Halloween special.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do Beyond the Door, the best Exorcist ripoff of all time. It is such a batshit movie. That's another movie I'm covering on the channel. It's like, if you're going to rip it off, do it like that.
Yeah.
If you're going to rip a movie off, do it like that. It's so good. The Italians ripped off the best. The way they ripped off movies.
Psychotic.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that Barbara Steele famously said, it may not make sense to you, but it makes sense to them.
Yes. As long as it makes sense to someone, you're safe.
And as an Italian, I totally understand that. Growing up in an Italian family, I'm like, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what we're watching right now.
Doing a lot of Italian stuff. And funny thing is that when I popped in the City of the Dead Blu-ray, because I'm also covering that on my channel. It was the wrong region. I got region B by accident.
No.
So we had to watch it on Shudder. I was like, I had all these special features. We were gonna go in, sounded like we were smart.
I know. Yeah, we weren't able to watch like the commentary or anything.
That's what I wanted to do. I was like, we're gonna just study tonight. This is great. And then I was like, it's this wrong region. I was like, oh fuck. I got the fucking British one.
Yeah.
That's such a shame. I love doing that though. I love watching with the commentary and learning about all the little weird quirks that happen. But especially with those older films, but no pressure. Like honestly, this is just going to be a more relaxed conversation about City of the Dead, because it was a first time watch for me too. We'll get to that. I just like, before we get on, I've been like like I was saying, my Halloween, I love old school Hammer stuff. And like I watched Horror Dracula, Terrence Fisher's the other night. Like I basically watched City of the Dead, and I was like, it's time for a Christopher Lee-a-thon. And
anything he's in,
yeah, totally. And it's the atmosphere, it's the mood of those films. And like, and then I watched my personal favorite Vincent Price film, Mask of the Red Death. That was a rewatch,
dude.
Yeah, so
all those Corman films are like those. The Corman post cycle is fucking ridiculous.
It's unreal, and I just love how Price can just play the most vicious, evil piece of shit.
Yep.
And then also be the most endearing, lovable guy in so many other films. Like there's truly no one like him.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff I've been watching this season. Just it puts me in the mood. I'm right after we finish up here, I'm going to watch the new Hellraiser because I'm just excited to see it.
I heard it's great.
I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it so
people
bad.
Are like, this is great. And I'm like, anyone who's complaining that it's a woman, she was a woman in the book, you fucking idiot. Like everything was non-binary in the book. Everything was like, there was like in it. And that works for Hellraiser. Like,
totally.
Don't get mad. It's fucking fine. Like let Pinhead be a woman because Pinhead was a fucking woman.
Yeah.
Also, like this is a genre, or this is a series of movies based on a lady's willing to bring back a guy from the dead just so she can have sex with him like one more time. Like if that's the reality we're working in, then everything is. It's
such a horny movie. It's the horniest movie of all time. Yeah. But I heard good things, and I'm like, good, they got it right. Like let a reboot get it right. Yeah. I'm burnt out on reboots, but if they get it right, good.
Yeah.
And the director was like a protege anyway. So
David Bruckner is amazing.
Yeah, Clive Barker. So David Bruckner is like a great student to have given the film to.
Totally.
So
No, I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. But do you guys want to start talking about the City of the Dead?
Hell yeah.
So Dennis, you had given me like a little list of films that we could potentially talk about, and this was one that popped out to me because I have like a long list of films I've always wanted to do on the show, and this was right there. So it was like, I saw that, I was like, let's do that. I finally have a reason to do this. But why did you choose The City of the Dead?
Because it's such a fucked up movie for 1960. Also, Bethany and I were discussing this, and this is what I'm going to do in the episode on my channel about it, is that it came out in 1960 in England and 61 in the States. But that year you have Black Sunday or Mask of Satan by Bava. You've got Psycho, and then you've got The City of the Living Dead. Now, if you put those movies together, they all have similarities, but yet none of them knew of each other. The beginning mirrors Mask of Satan / Black Sunday like to a T. It is it's like the American version of that. It's like and then the beginning, and then the first half of the film is Psycho. It's basically Psycho. It's the blonde going to this weird place she's trying to find in Psycho, she's trying to hide after stealing money. It's a young blonde woman going to a different town essentially. And you're like, well, this is the lead of the movie, and then spoiler alert, it's not. They're very similar. I thought it was very brutal for a movie from the 60s. I thought it was so atmospheric. It felt more like a Twilight Zone episode, the way it was shot, than like a full-blown feature film. It had a TV vibe to it, and we figured out why later. It was actually shot as a pilot. It was supposed to be a TV show. I don't know if it was shot as a pilot, but it was definitely supposed to be a TV show, as a series. Right. Okay. So, but the atmosphere itself is Halloween. I mean, you're dealing with witches, Salem, or Massachusetts rather. And Christopher Lee. I mean, it's like, and it's all Brits doing American. So I'm like, this is it. It's almost like post-Hammer horror or pre. It may be pre. I think it's probably pre. Because all the Hammer horror stuff came later. But the other thing that I really love about it is I'm trying to normalize putting generational curses on entire villages right before you die.
Yes.
And this movie has that. Look, when I die, because apparently we all do, I hope it is in a very theatrical way, and I hope that I am given the chance to curse everyone, because that's what this woman does, rightly so. And it's such a wonderful way to start a movie, because it's, and this movie too, the cast, the actors they found to play this village, like these villagers, are so unique looking, and the camera zooms in on all of their faces as this woman, as Elizabeth Selwyn, is like tied up, chained up to this, the stake, and they're setting her on fire, and she's like, "I bid thee, Lucifer, I will do your bidding for the rest." And then everyone in the village who has like no teeth are like, "Oh, it's a curse," and it's so engaging because each one looks so unique and special and strange, and then they come back and you see them again, and it's so moody and wonderful and like scenery chewing.
Yes.
In such a delicious way.
And that's the thing too that you said, is the moodiness, the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I am like, if you give me a sleepy little town, a bunch of fog,
fog.
So much fog,
and a mission, and someone's on a mission, and everyone in the town is high strangeness in a small high strangeness in a small town.
Yeah,
I am fucking in.
I'll do anything you want.
Take my money. I don't give a shit who made this. Just take my money. I'm there. And this has that, and it did it in 1960, and that's why I think it really holds up.
Oh,
like,
man.
I mean, of course it's corny. Like there's some corny moments, but it holds up because it's actually kind of fucking brutal. If you put yourself back in 1960, you're like, this movie's brutal.
Yeah.
She gets brutalized. Like
and I mean, we're going to fast forwarding to the end, like there's a man who's literally stumbling around a graveyard holding a cross.
That end is batshit.
With a knife in his back.
And it's setting people on fire.
Popping off on fire. It is just quintessential Halloween spirit.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch, what did you love about it?
I loved it, and obviously, like you guys have seen The Druid's Hand. Like I'm a big fan of the occult and religious horror.
Hell yeah.
And like there is something to be said. I know even on our previous episode, we were talking with Chet Zar, who's like a legendary dark artist, and he was mentioning that he doesn't like he loves the movie The Witch, but doesn't love how Hollywood and horror has notoriously got it wrong, But for me, I think that like that's part of the charm, is that's just good stories. Like you can come up with really good stories with the evil tales of a cult, and this one is like, it's grown to be one of my favorites, and it's really ironic. Obviously, I was going to mention the Psycho thing as well. I watch Psycho every year, and I study that film like it's my job.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's crazy how they did come out the same year. They had no idea who each other were. And it's so interesting how like the story beats are the same.
Yep.
The ending is even the same.
Yep.
The close up on a fucking corpse. And,
it's like, there's something in the universe floating around.
Something in the filmmaking air.
Yeah.
And what I love about this one too is that they do say that they're witches, but I consider them Satan worshipers.
Sure.
So I don't consider them witches, and that's where I think that like they were hiding under the moniker of witches.
Yeah.
But I think that it was, they were truly Satan worshipers. And then again, this was one of the iterations of the Satanic Panic. You had like the one in the 60s or late 50s, then you had the one in the 80s, and now we're going through another one now.
Back in it, yeah. But it's also funny because I had seen this movie last year, I think.
We watched it on like Tubi last year.
But I definitely fell asleep during it. And
so this the best stuff. These are the best.
Bethany can fall asleep.
Oh God, I fall like, that's why I fall asleep to Vincent Price movies all the time. It's just
so comforting.
Yeah.
But so I didn't remember it fully. And so when they're talking at the beginning and Christopher Lee is giving his class in his house, about witches and like, Yeah. And so, women were burned as witches and I expected him to be like, and they were innocent victims, right? Of this hysteria. And it's like, no, they were actually witches. Like there's no like trying to tell a story of these women were wrongly judged. But no, they're witches. There's witchcraft is real, and they definitely did it. And they did. That's the other thing is like Elizabeth Selwyn was definitely worshiping Satan, and I loved that. I don't know. I don't even think that was intended to be funny or interesting.
Right. I think that now we can start. I feel like now we can work on not demonizing. The Wiccan in general,
pagan.
and pagan and witches, and say like, hey, these people were wrongly accused of just believing in something that you didn't agree with,
or just being strong ladies.
Right.
Yeah.
It made you
having
uncomfortable.
independent thoughts.
Yeah.
And exactly.
Not getting married.
Not getting married.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a witch. Burn her.
Yeah.
You know, she's showing her ankles. Burn her.
Burn her.
Yeah.
Too sexy.
Yes. but like the witch that you bring that up, I love everything
So
he
good.
does. I love anything Roger Eggers does. I love.
Yeah,
I
me
haven't
too.
seen The Northman yet, but I heard it's great. I'm looking forward to Nosferatu.
Oh yeah.
But the witch, I heard it had something to do with there was something that they were eating at the time that was also making them hallucinate or poisoning them.
Ergot?
Yes,
Is it ergot poisoning?
Yeah. So he included that. That's in there, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that. Like
Yeah.
apparently the whole movie's about ergot poisoning.
Oh,
Yeah.
to watch it again.
I was like, oh shit, okay, I guess it was. That was something that I heard somewhere. So
Mhm.
I'm curious to research
Yeah.
that. But going back to this, if you look at the time period, you know, the reason why this gets me in the mood for it is like they don't get it right, and it's super corny, but it's also it feels like Halloween.
Exactly.
When you watch it. The Witch
Yeah.
doesn't feel like Halloween. The Witch feels like you're watching a very well-made movie.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
don't put that on to get in the Halloween spirit. That
Yeah.
comes
No.
later in October. That might even be a December movie.
Sure. Not
You know?
nearly enough fog
That's exactly it. We need
in
fog
the
and like
Vavitch.
the hand painted sets and everything.
Yeah.
Like the atmosphere and the mood of these things is just it's palpable, and this is quickly becoming one of my favorites. I know it's going to be a rewatch every year.
Right?
And
Yeah.
And it has to go. I have to say, so we realized last night, and I have to look her name up.
I'm so glad you said that, Mitch. While Bethany's looking this up, I'm so glad as a filmmaker, I'm so glad that you love like the handcrafted stuff. And
Oh yeah.
you know, if you watch Sleepy Hollow by Tim Burton, he did that. He was doing
Yeah.
Hammer horror in that movie.
Yeah.
And everything was hand painted and beautiful. And I'm like, my God, like I wish we could still do that. I wish we could paint sets again. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
No, I agree. And like that's the thing, there's one of the closest things that we have now is like Guillermo del Toro, who's like he has all these elaborate, beautiful sets, but then you know with the new age comes the visual effects and like all the stuff
Mhm.
that's like they add all this stuff in post that just it muddles down the handcrafted part of the magic.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so fun going back and watching these movies and just seeing also like anyone who's dabbled into filmmaking themselves knows how fucking hard it is.
Yeah.
Then you think about like how many moving parts and like the choreography that goes into like even that witch burning scene and when everyone's getting lit on fire and he's carrying the cross through and it's like God, this is so. And I think about
So
it because obviously it's a subject that comes up whenever you talk about Psycho. Is like, imagine at that time there wasn't other things like that. Like it was really crushing people when they were going in and seeing Psycho, and the shower scene notoriously, like the fucking City of the Dead is so much gnarlier.
It's so gnarlier. She gets like stabbed, and then the boyfriend, like all of the main characters, and this was something that happened in The Blob 1988. You know, sorry for all the spoilers, guys. Like if you haven't seen these movies, shut this off and go watch them. But like in The Blob 1988, the thing that did that, the thing that really affected me when I was a kid was I thought the football star was going to be the hero, and he dies in the first act.
Yes.
In the first 30 minutes, he's dead.
Devastating.
And I was like, oh shit, the good guy died.
You're not safe anymore.
Right. So like in this, you think the pretty blonde is going to somehow be like captured and then the boyfriend is going to come up, but no, they straight up murder her.
Yeah, I thought someone was like, you know, she's on the table and the Satan worshipers are all gathered around her. They're waiting till the 13th strike of the clock. And you're like, someone's going to jump in here. And no one jumps in.
That was
and she's
shocking.
dead.
It was shocking to me. I was like, oh my God, they psychoed this like the same time that Psycho did it, where that was shocking at the time to see her die, you know, when you had this MacGuffin going on with the whole like, oh, I got to hide the money or I got to go back. You know, and so that amazed me. And I really liked it. You had something to
so speaking of, so the blonde woman who dies right away, who we think is our lead, her character's name is Nan Barlow.
Nan, right.
So the actress who played her is a woman named Venetia Stevenson. We realized Venetia Stevenson died last week.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh damn! You killed her, Dennis.
Dennis.
It was you.
You did this.
I am the bitch.
Venetia Stevenson died as we record this 26th of September. So last week.
That's nuts.
A week and a half ago. So it was like
R.I.P.
like
legend.
Yeah, no kidding.
she was she like admitted she wasn't the best actress. But I thought she was lovely in this movie.
I loved her, and she's gorgeous. I mean,
beautiful,
stunning,
and like so charismatic, so likable, and
so innocent. Like
and
the way she was hungry for knowledge. When she said, "I really want to go," the line that kills me is when she looks at Christopher Lee and says, "I really want to immerse myself in the research. I need to go to this town." Like she had this obsession with like going to the actual place. And as a person who, like, as directors, it's like I feel like we have that obsession when we make a film. Like, I want to know everything. I want to immerse myself in this world and have people immersed in this world. Like, I related to her so much.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, I like her so much. And I know she's gonna eat it.
Yeah, she's gonna eat it fast.
And I really loved her. I was like, she's
great.
great. I was shocked that she didn't do more.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, this sounds really trite, but like, I'm sorry to her family.
Yeah.
Like if she recently passed and she seemed lovely.
Yeah, she seemed lovely.
And she was great in this movie. And I'm glad that for as few movies as she did, I'm glad that we have this, part of her body of work, because it's really such a wonderful film.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. She really left a mark in this film. Like she's such a huge part of the heartbeat. And like, obviously it's always, something that happened with like watching the horror of Dracula with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. It's like, those are two people just acting their asses off, and like there's such presences, such commanding presences, and to be in any movie with Christopher Lee is that's got to be so intimidating.
Oh God, like, terrifying.
Well, even George Lucas was scared. Like when he had him on set on Star Wars, he was like, "This is fucking Christopher Lee. Like this is the guy I watched, forever." And then I was telling Bethany this really funny story about Peter Jackson when he was working on Lord of the Rings with Peter Jackson. He said to him, Peter was like, "Now when you're gonna get stabbed, and you gotta like do that." And he said, no, I'm not gonna do that. And he went, "Why?" He's like, "Because I have been stabbed. And do you know what it's like getting stabbed?" And Peter goes, "No." He goes, "Well, it's like this." That's what you do. He said, "So I'm gonna do that." And he went, okay. And he like walked away. I'm like, holy shit, Christopher Lee. Like he knew. So like, my God, imagine being able to. That man is such a presence.
Yeah.
And he can do evil and he can do good.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because his Dracula, everyone said that his Dracula was the first sexy Dracula.
So hot.
Because Bela Lugosi was creepy and he wasn't really hot. Christopher Lee was like hot.
I mean, Nosferatu was if you're into a certain type of sexy.
Yeah, it depends.
Count Orlok.
Yeah, if you're into like a certain sort of waggy finger kind of creepy lurky sexy.
Yeah, gothy kids and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, and just speaking of like directors working with Christopher Lee, I have to give props to Tim Burton for in Sleepy Hollow, which is like another really atmospheric Halloween must.
So good.
Just saying that's Hammer. That's him doing Hammer horror.
Yeah, it's like he has that moment where Christopher Lee plays the judge at the very beginning of the movie, and he puts behind him this giant eagle statue, so that when Christopher Lee is passing down the judgment to Ichabod Crane, saying like you have to go to Sleepy Hollow, there's dark wings that are behind him, and it's just this awesome moment of like paying tribute to this man's career, where he's been a spooky boy his whole career and done so much awesome work.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. So good. And that's the other thing I noticed too. Well, obviously, like so much of the story has like everything in storytelling gets eventually recycled and turned into something new. And that's just how art evolves. But there's so much of the Wicker Man in this movie too, which came out like 13 years later.
Dude.
Yeah, like there's so many similarities, and like you got to think that like when they were making the Wicker Man, like there's without a doubt City of the Dead was discussed, because like there's just so many correlations, too many correlations for it to be a coincidence. It's a masterpiece. Like Wicker Man's a masterpiece too.
Oh, the original is unbelievable. Now Bethany is a huge Nicolas Cage fan. So
I'm a Cage apologist and lover.
Me too.
So I think the remake is great in a whole other way.
Not the bees.
But man, that first one, it's like the Kill List. The Kill List reminds me of the Wicker Man too. Have you seen the Kill List?
Oh yeah,
love
that film.
Oh my God, that's a tangent. But you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
I think anytime you have a story that takes somebody quote unquote sort of not educated, but maybe of society, right? Or like of the educational system or of a big city, and put them into a pagan town or a small, agricultural town or a small town in general, you get inherently a spooky vibe.
Mm-hmm.
I think anybody that is not from a small town and visits a small town immediately feels that otherness that brings with it just an inherent atmosphere of creepiness. And so I think it's a perfect comparison to draw to The Wicker Man, because it's just, and the same thing with Midsommar, right? Like it's just the same thing. Anytime you bring like academia into a small village, you get this feeling of like otherness that I think is really fun to play with.
And Mitch, what is it for you about this film that just brings you into the Halloween spirit? Because it really is, like, doesn't it? It just gets you there.
Is it the fog?
It's the fog plays a huge part of it, but also like just the costume design, the set design, and everything. Like it oozes. Like you guys mentioned, Sleepy Hollow, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. Like that's been a staple in my life ever since I saw it in the theater when I was too young. And I remember, like, I think would have been like 10 years old when that movie came out, and it just fucking rocked me. But it also, I think that was like where I was like, oh, am I a goth boy? Like, am I gonna be a gothy boy? Am I into spooky things? Because I was just obsessed with it. And I love the aesthetic of this movie. And that like just the story is so vicious. It's so vicious for its time. I love seeing how much they didn't hold back in the story. And we
got to give credit to who plays the witch. She's
wonderful.
She's so good.
Oh my God. Like if you needed a quintessential, like, let's get someone that looks like a witch of that time, right? You got, like, she was perfect. Her performance is unbelievable. It's Patricia Giselle. Patricia Giselle. She just has this look.
Yeah.
That is, she looks like a cat.
Yes.
She looks like a black cat. Like that's the only way I can describe her. Her movements, the way she like kind of floated.
Yeah.
Actually, and she didn't walk, she kind of floated in this movie.
Yeah.
And she would just sort of appear, and she had this sense of like regality. Is that it? Regalia? Regulation. She was very regal. She was very regal. And just there's something about her presence that is just unbelievable. And that performance.
Yeah.
As
the brows too.
The brows. Yeah. The brows.
So commanding and like intimidating. It's like I feel like I'm going to be grounded just looking.
Exactly. The schoolmaster's going to come and smack you on the wrist, but there was something about her that was a bit reserved too.
Yeah.
And man, like, what a performance.
There's also this great moment that I would watch a whole movie based on, where it's her and Jethro, who is the man, who I don't know if that's her husband or just
it's
her husband.
Who betrayed her, but then when she was on the stake, he was like, save us, Satan.
Save her. Where he's the one, if you haven't seen the movie, he always appears on sort of the crossroads to any new visitor, any new sexy lady visitor who's coming to visit this small town. And he rides the last couple of miles with them. And he brings Nan in, and then Nan is dispatched. And then he brings this another woman in, Pat. And later he and our Elizabeth, or this woman we were just talking about, they're sitting and looking at the fire. And he says, the new one's pretty too. And Elizabeth Selwyn has this reaction of like, oh, you like all the pretty girls, but I'm your wife. And I would love to see just like a real bitchy moment between this couple where he just always has a crush on the new victims, their new like sacrifices. And she's just really sick of hearing it. It was just like a hint of a split second of a moment, but it was just so funny.
She eyebrows him.
Yeah, she eyebrows him. She's like, I'm sick of hearing about it, Jethro. Like, just keep bringing in the ladies. I don't want to hear about it.
No, so true. There's just so many different layers to this movie, and like that's what a lot of these older films, like, they're very surface level and they're just easily digestible. You can chew them up, spit it out. You go about your day. But this one, it really lingers with you because of how vicious it is. And big fan, and I highly recommend, if people are listening and haven't seen The City of the Dead, or also known as Horror Hotel, this is quintessential horror Halloween shit. Like, you got to get it in your system.
Start off with this. Like, this is early October.
Yeah.
Yes. Early October, you throw this on and you're like, oh shit. Like I am ready.
Especially on like a fall afternoon.
Yes.
You know, like it's like a 2-3 p.m. movie where you're maybe doing some light weekend housework, but this is on in the background and it's so comforting. It's just a wonderful crispy fall afternoon.
You don't have to look for any deep meaning. Like it is a very surface level film, but it's also very, like it's vicious. It's well shot. It's some of the performances are it's never boring.
No.
It moves at a click,
lean.
man. It's like boom, boom, boom. It's lean. Yeah, it's nice. It moves fast.
Yeah, it's like 76 minutes long.
Yep, keeps you engaged. It's like it's really, really good. It just puts you in that mood. I say double feature, do this and then do Black Sunday. And you are set. You're set. It's just like the perfect witch double feature. You know?
Yeah, totally agree. Love it. Well, do you guys have anything else you want to mention about that, about City of the Dead? Or because I want to close this off talking about the later half of October, like getting closer to Halloween. But any last thoughts on City of the Dead?
I think the only other thing is that I was really struck by the ending where just main character after main character just starts on fire. It really reminded me of the spoiler alert for Ready or Not. But Ready or Not, where just like everyone blows up, and I was like, nothing is new. Like this was it was such a wonderful way to end this batshit movie, where just everyone starts on fire, and I loved it in Ready or Not, and I was tickled by it even more in this because it was earlier.
I just say go seek it out. The past is just as important as the present and the future, and I think the more we preserve these films and talk about them, the more we will be able to keep them around for a long time
and continue learning from them.
Yes. You have to look. It may be corny, it may be dated, it may feel like not scary, but there are some films that just stand the test of time, and this is one of them for me. You know, I will always stand by that with this one.
And I think we have a tendency to look back at previous generations and say like, we know more than they did. And to sort of be like, our work now is more educated and is more
it's more prestige.
Right. But the people who made these films were so creative and so twisted and just as intelligent and just as amazing at their jobs, and things were just as twisted. And so I think going in to these movies with this understanding of like, these are great.
Yeah, and might I add, this was the director's first film.
Yeah,
this is his first movie.
It's great.
You know, and that's why I was shocked to learn that the Haunting of Julia is Richard Longcrane's like second film. These films deserve to have a rewatch. They deserve to be sort of placed. You know, like, okay, so the Film Preservation Society, like people like Martin Scorsese, they fight for these old films, you know, to be preserved. Us in the horror space, we have to do the same thing. We have to treat these films as like as important as Fellini, as important as, because they are part of our culture as horror people. They're part of the history, and to me, they're just as important as an 8.5.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, a lot of people may look down on it and be like, The City of the Dead's a garbage movie, and you could be like, you could say that, but think about the time period it came out. Think about, you know, how brutal and vicious it is, and how
the limitations they were facing that we didn't like. There's certain things that like it's a luxury now, the amount of resources we have. And like the biggest thing, especially Dennis, knowing you're an editor, something really stood out to me in this movie is the editing. Like the editing is so freaking lean, and like
it's so good.
It's the smash cut of when they go to stab her and it goes to the cake.
Goes to the cake.
How many times have we seen that now?
Like, well, and if you want to start pulling apart deeper meaning, birthday cake, she's dying.
Yeah.
The stab into the birth, into celebrating someone's arrival into the world.
Oh man.
Juxtaposed with the exiting.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like that. I'm like, look at the meaning. Like if you want to go and like pull apart meaning of visual work, you know, there it is. Like it's there, it's important. If that happened in a Fellini movie, people would be like, you know, coming in their pants. But you know, it's like let it like it happens in horror too. Like no matter what you think of, like, you know, what you think is trash and what you think is like, you know, art.
Yeah.
To me, this is a movie that is artful, and it's
Totally.
and I love it. And I think the ending is so batshit
It's
insane.
great.
It goes so far off the rails,
Yeah.
so fast. A dude with a dagger in his back uproots a cross, a crucifix, and he's burning people with it. Like, go watch this movie.
As he's dying, like
As
he's dying.
Yeah.
Setting people on fire, seemingly really without realizing it, because he's just out of it.
Yeah.
And he's just like staggering forward.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
Go watch this fucking movie.
We should all be
people.
so lucky as to set people on fire without realizing it.
Exactly.
What a way to go out.
Yeah, no, I totally, that's like, oh God, I love so much because there's so many things about these movies. I'm a huge fan of like classic Universal monsters and stuff like that. I love those movies, but it's always just comforting and relaxing watching them. And then there's this one where I'm sitting there and I actually, like, my jaw dropped when like the ending was happening. Like, how is it so crazy that a movie from this era can still evoke such a like visceral shock and surprise? And to see when everyone's getting lit up on fire, I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what a picture. What a picture.
Yeah, I know. Brava. Now,
Yeah.
Mitch, if you do like the Universal stuff, Michael Giancana just made for Disney. I mean, I'm not really I'm not a fan of what Disney's doing with my childhood properties right now, but I will say, apparently Werewolf by Night, he did a great job.
Yeah. I'm excited to check that one out. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyone like us who loves the black and white stuff, they said he nails it. And he's actually a really good director. He was the composer for Cloverfield and all this other stuff. So
fabulous.
Yeah. I was just telling Bethany that.
Yeah.
Michael Giancana, amazing. Turned out to be a great guy who understands, you know, classic horror. I like people who appreciate history too.
Totally.
You know, like it's important. It's important that we know these things.
Well, that's this biggest fucking name drop I've maybe made in a long time. But
do it.
Like previous guest of the show, Dean Cundy said.
Oh, dude, when you
when
you sent me that episode, I went, what the fuck? That guy made me want to like shoot movies. Like because he always shot anamorphic, which is my thing. Like I love did you shoot the Druid's Hand anamorphic or you gotta. Even if people are watching it on their phone, that's what makes it feel like a movie.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, it gives it such a bigger like cinematic scope. But like a big thing for him, like I just remember talking about like what kind of advice he has for young up and coming filmmakers and stuff like that. And he was in the midst of shooting the book of Boba Fett. Like the guy's like nearing 80 years old and he's still working on these massive Star Wars movies or shows. But he mentioned, he's like, go back and watch 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and like, you know, study your elders, like learn from the past and learn from and you get to see what is translated, what has stood the test of time, like stuff that is still done in City of the Dead that you see in Ready or Not, or, you know, The Wicker Man, and it goes just generation by generation. And there's certain things that don't work. And that's how, you know, all right, not going to try that because I haven't seen, like, that's something that didn't work out. And there's so much to learn from it, from a filmmaking perspective.
Exactly. And I appreciated that about the Druid's Hand because, you know, there's not a lot of what I always say to people is go easy on your technology. That will immediately date your film. You know what I mean? And there's not a lot of like tech in your film. It's a lot of like organic.
Yeah. No cell phone in sight.
No, exactly. No cell phones, no computers, like keep it light on that stuff.
Yeah.
We tried to do the same thing in Lonely Hearts, although we do have the laptop, but like, you know, it will date things. And also when you go back and you appreciate history, you start to understand how to create a movie without leaning on certain things and focusing on story and characters. And like, that's really important. And I think that's why Druid's Hand is working for people, because it's beautifully shot. It's well acted. The set pieces are beautiful. And you didn't go overboard on certain things. You know what I mean? Yeah. You created atmosphere. Atmosphere is number one in horror and genre. If you don't have atmosphere, that's it. If something looks like shit and it's flat and you got no atmosphere, you got no shadows, bye, I'm out, you know? Can't do it. You know,
it's tough to keep people's attention these days, and like that's the good part about being someone who's also just obsessive about it, and like, you know, a fan, and like you know, watching, always learning, and No, I really appreciate the kind words. I don't know how to respond to them.
It's okay, man. Get used to it. You're going to be getting a lot of that,
Thanks,
I mean,
man.
Screamfest is so huge. That's such a great, you're going to have so much fun.
Thanks, man. I'm so nervous, but so excited. I haven't been to LA since I was 9 years old.
You won't want to go back after.
I hear such mixed things. Like
it's fine.
I have friends who are like, LA is my second home. I love everything about it. And then there's people I know who even live there, and they're like, this place is hell. It's the worst.
Great place to visit.
Yeah.
Great place to work.
Yep.
Yeah.
I personally, I would never live there. I gotta have cold. I gotta have,
we need snow.
Yeah.
We like snow.
We're snow people.
Yeah. No, totally fair. Awesome. Well, speaking of, snow is around the corner, and so is Halloween.
Yes.
So what are like you had mentioned a couple times in this episode that's like, this is a great early October watch, or like I like that you guys think that way. Like, I have to plan out, like, you can't watch Mask of the Red Death on a Saturday night. It's got to be at the like a movie like that. There's a certain time frame that you got to watch it. There's a certain type of breeze that needs to be coming in the window. It sounds like corny, but I was like,
no, you're right.
Yep.
When I was watching Mask of the Red Death the other day, I had my pinky up drinking a glass of red wine. And it was like the cold autumn breeze is coming in. I'm like, oh boy, Halloween is here.
Yes,
perfect.
Is here.
Yeah.
So what's the later half of the month looking for you guys? What's your Halloween looking like?
Oh gosh.
I usually, as we get into the later stuff, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but in the beginnings, in the first half for me is a lot of like black and white. It's a lot of black and white, maybe Universal Monsters. And then towards like the weekends, I'm doing like a little bit of giallo mixed with crazy shit, like the City of the Living Dead. So it's just no, not the City of the Living. It's the Fulci trilogy. Like the Beyond, that stuff, like, right? Like, so his like whole like weirdo crazy trilogy, the Beyond, that stuff.
Yeah.
That's like mid. And as we get later, oh fuck, man, I'm going Halloween 3. I'm doing the thing we watched earlier.
We already did.
Aliens up there.
We already did
a horror
Aliens,
movie.
Yep.
We did
Aliens
Alien,
good.
right? Alien is a slasher to us. So later on, like, we go into like the more slasher stuff, maybe some comedies, like Young Frankenstein pops up during Halloween.
God, does that movie hold up? Like,
it's so good.
It's the best.
There's moments, and of course it's politically incorrect, but that's part of its charm at this point. But the thing is, like, oh my God, I just rewatched that movie for the first time, and it's so long. And I was like, oh my God, this movie is funnier than ever, because you get older and you get to pick up on the jokes they're putting down.
Oh my God, yes. And I said, Bethany, her performance in Lonely Hearts reminds me so much of Terry Garr. Like, she has that timing in Lonely Hearts. And I'm like, my God, when we were watching her on the monitor, we were laughing so hard because she's so funny, and she just comes up with this stuff. Oh, she's so hilarious. Someone described the movie as a slow burn meet cute. I was like, yeah, that's it. So that's, and then also mixed in with later is, like, for me at least, it's like giallo, and I don't like anything past Halloween 3. I actually don't even like the new Halloweens, but the opening of Halloween 4. Just watch the opening. Oh, it feels like I'm like, that feels like October. That really feels like October. It's such a stunning opening. The movie sucks, but like the opening is amazing. What about you, hun?
I have to throw Clue in again. It's not really a horror movie, but it's a
Victorian stuff.
And it's a very atmospheric, fun movie for me. I think The Exorcist 3 has to come out at some point.
Yes.
Speaking of creepy openings, I think William Peter Blatty is directed the hell out of that movie. It's very creepy. Brad Dourif and anything makes me happy.
The original Child's Play too.
Child's Play. What else do I want? And then I have to do just some cozy stuff. I may throw on a couple episodes of Murder, She Wrote. I may.
You're more of the Victorian.
I love a good Victorian.
Stuff.
I love a mansion and a lot of people dying in it.
Well, you were even saying House on Haunted Hill.
House on Haunted Hill. Yeah. So I rewatched speaking of Vincent Price, I rewatched him in that, and then I started rewatching the 1999
the Chris Kattan one.
Chris Kattan in House on Haunted Hill. Oh my God, so good. So just a lot of that, like the really comfortable stuff for me is coming up.
And this year, I think we're going to switch it up and at least do some 90s stuff like The Faculty.
Yeah.
Teaching Miss Tingle. Like go reach back into the 90s, because I was old enough to see those in theaters. Like I saw the first Scream and witnessed the phenomena and was like, holy shit, Wes Craven's fucking back, man. And like,
I think the Blair Witch too has to come out.
Blair Witch has to come out.
It's so scary still. And to your technology point, Dennis, I think one of the scariest parts of that movie is the part where, why can I never remember her name? It's
Heather.
Heather, I think. I always want to call her Amanda for some reason. Where Heather screams, "What the fuck is that?" and never points the camera at the thing. Like that, it was a mistake. And I think that's the reason the movie holds up, is because you never see the thing that she was looking at.
Exactly.
And
they allude to it. The conversation, it's the same with like, the conversation with Quint telling the story in Jaws about the USS Indianapolis, and like, and just he paints the most horrific scene that no camera could do. There's no camera that would be able to pull off what you do a simple story, and like alluding to something like the bag of teeth and Blair Witch.
Yep. It's so horrifying. And so I think that one will have to come out too.
Yeah. And then I usually at the right towards the end, I'm doing my Bavathon, man. I gotta have Planet of the Vampires.
It's Bavaween.
It's Bavaween. I gotta do Planet of the Vampires. I gotta do Black Sunday. Black Sunday is my comfort movie, man.
Yeah, love it.
I put that on throughout the year. I watch that like 6 times a year at least, and I really ramp it up during spooky season. Yeah, I mean, we're really digging back into the history this year. We're doing a lot of Italian stuff.
Yeah,
I can't wait for Beyond the Door tonight. I'm so excited.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen Beyond the Door, and like that's it. I'm gonna knock it off this weekend. Hopefully, I'll watch it either tonight or tomorrow, because I plan doing Hellraiser, and then one of my ultimate a film I watch every single Halloween. It's a movie that just always gets me in the spirit, is The Haunting, the original Haunting.
Oh, so good.
That is like show don't tell. And that honestly, if you want to talk, everyone's talking about the sound design of Smile, which we haven't seen yet. But I'm like, motherfuckers, have you seen The Haunting?
Yeah.
Like that shit is fun. Sound design. If you want to go back to sound design. The whole movie is sound design.
Totally. You can just read, like, if you're out there listening and you haven't seen The Haunting, you can even just go on IMDb and look up the quotes and read like just the dialogue, and it's like, oh my god, the writing in it is fucking so eerie and so creepy.
It's so good.
And the atmosphere, I'm also a big fan of, like the Victorian mansions and gothy stuff like that. And a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan, and like I remember I saw Nightmare on Elm Street before I saw The Haunting, but seeing like the person coming out of the wall, and they use the red curtain.
Yes.
Like, God, it's so beautiful. But
when you can't even trust walls,
exactly,
you know you're in trouble.
And I really, after rewatching The Haunting of Julia, that's an early one too. I realize I'm really in the mood for ghost stories now. So I want to dig in and find some weirdo ghost shit that I've never heard of before, that I'm like, let's watch this one. Like I want to go into like haunted Italian movies and see like what they were doing.
Yeah. I love a good ghost. A good ghost.
Oh, a good ghost is great. We don't have a lot of good ghost stories right now. But Hellraiser's another one too. Bethany, you tried Hellraiser 1 and 2 and you were like, they're kind of gross.
Oh, it's so gross.
It's so disgusting.
I like the first one. Because it's, it's incredibly, it looms large, right, in horror films, and it's like, you should see it. And I just like, again, how horny it is. Like,
it's so horny.
You're gonna murder people so that you can resurrect your husband's brother.
Yeah.
So you can do him again.
The decision that they're like, obviously they're not, hideous chuds or anything like that, but the fact that it's not Megan Fox and they're not.
I know.
And it's such a sexy, like horny movie where it's it's just. I remember when I saw Hellraiser when I was way too young, and I've always been like, I'm not a Hellraiser fan. Just couldn't get into it because I was like, it reminded me of Days of Our Lives and the stuff that my mom was watching.
It does.
Like a horny middle-aged woman.
Yeah,
is like important in this movie.
I saw it. Luckily, I'm extremely mentally ill, and I obsess and collect Blu-rays. And there was like a brand new Hellraiser box that I'm like, it was $200, and I'm like, Mitch, you don't even like these movies. Why are you clicking buy? And then I bought it and I revisited it as an adult. And now I'm one of those people. I'm like, the original Hellraiser, one of the best horror movies ever made.
It's great.
Of all time.
It's great.
Of all time.
It's so
also
icky.
It's so gross.
And what's funny is you love Cronenberg. So like The Brood is another one that comes out later.
Love
The Brood. We gotta watch that. Yeah, The Brood. Any Cronenberg's awesome. The Fly, like that's another great.
That's my Valentine's Day movie.
Hell
The
yeah.
Fly,
Hell
It's a true
yeah.
love story.
I'm
Kill
a
me.
romantic. Yeah.
Great double feature, The Fly and Annie Hall. There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
The real horror was Woody Allen himself.
Exactly.
But yeah, so like that's I think that's
And
really
I think
what we
one
want.
more, speaking of like diminishing returns, I think Cube. I want to bust Cube.
Oh yeah, the first one.
Because again, I don't know if that
Again,
qualifies.
our neighbors from the
Canadian
north who
picture.
made that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't. Does that qualify as a horror film?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would say sci-fi horror.
Sci-fi horror.
Yeah, sci-fi horror. In the Mouth of Madness.
Oh,
I think one of the last great John Carpenter films.
Definitely the most underrated, I think.
Way underrated.
Yeah,
that
movie's
again,
so fucking wild.
right? And again, creepy town.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
creepy town based
Very
on Stephen
Lovecraftian.
King. Yeah, very
Yeah.
Lovecraftian. It's
Yeah.
like, let's take a Sutter Kane is 100% Stephen King.
For
Like,
sure.
Yeah, like they were like, even the name Sutter Kane feels
yeah.
like.
And
you
they
know,
don't name drop Stephen King in the movie too.
I think
Yeah, they do, because
so.
it's like
Do
he
you
sold more
read
than
Sutter
Stephen
Kane?
King. Yeah.
Do you read Sutter Kane? And the death scenes, they're so crazy when the dude with the axe comes in and the first and his eyes are all fucked up and it's like, whoa, what the fuck is going on, man?
So scared. And that's another, it's been forever, but we see him coming too. That's another one where like
he's
they're in the diner
distance.
and you see him and I love that. I love it when you see him coming.
Yeah, the monumental
so-
horror shot.
Yeah,
When
so
you
scary.
see something in the distance and it's coming closer and you know it's happening.
Yeah.
And then it happens.
Do you read Sutter Kane?
Do you read Sutter Kane? We need shirts that say, do you read Sutter
Oh, I
Kane?
know. Yeah, so good. No, this has been an absolute blast, you guys. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
No,
Thank
you
you.
for having us.
Yeah, this is super fun, and we got to have you back again at some point. And I'm looking forward to just seeing you guys just keep creating, keep being yourselves. It's so inspiring
you,
to
friend.
see. I love watching your guys' journey. I love following. I highly recommend anyone listening to make sure you follow both of you on Instagram. Let's get your Instagram handles right now.
Sure. I'm Ms. Bethany Watson.
And I'm at Dennis Cahlo on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got to get Bethany's numbers up, you guys. She's kind of lacking in the follower count right now. So please go and support Bethany.
Well, one thing though that we will say is that we do love our horror people, and we don't think we have enough horror people that follow us, and that's who we love who follow us now.
Absolutely. But I will say every time I post something especially witchy or gothy, I lose like 1,000 followers.
So please come support us.
And Mitch, safe travels, by the way.
Yeah.
And I hope
Thank
we
you.
all get to work together someday.
I really hope we get to work together in some
Yeah.
capacity, or end up in another festival together, which we probably will, and actually get to meet in person. But
yeah, I'm excited for that. That day will happen. It will come.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can't wait. I'm so happy to hear you guys are working on a feature. And after seeing what you did with Doors and Lonely Hearts, it's like you guys got the goods to pull it off on a shoestring. It's not easy, but
well, we thought about that, and we're working with a wonderful writer because I didn't want to write my first feature. I actually prefer to work with writers.
Yeah.
We have a great writer. His name is Will
Rogers.
Will Rogers. I always forget his last name.
Not the cowboy.
Not the cowboy. Will Rogers. He has a podcast called Guide to the Unknown. He is an amazing writer. We had an idea. We told it to him. We said, "Can you write this?" And he said yes. And he came. We're at the midst of two really fantastic first and second act, and we're ready.
Yep.
And we are going to finish the script and hopefully get it into production soon.
Yeah.
So
we're very excited.
It's lean though.
Yeah. It's lean, but I'm training for this movie.
Yeah, Bethany's training.
Like I'm doing like push-ups for it.
We're watching a lot of stuff like Ripley. We're watching a lot of
love to hear it.
I will say this. The feature is going to be fun because it takes our love of gaming and horror and puts them into one thing.
Yeah.
And we're excited about it. And we hope it will come to life soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it will. You guys you're always busy. You're always keeping at it. And it's really inspiring to see. So congratulations on everything that you've achieved this year.
Thank you.
Once again, you can check out Dennis's YouTube channel, which is, you can just search up Dennis Cahlo, I'm sure, on YouTube, and that'll pop up. It'll also be in our show notes, and keep an eye out for Doors, which plays at the Ethereal Film Festival next. That's super exciting. And Twitch Thursday nights. You said
Tuesdays from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Thursdays when Bethany and I play together.
Yep.
That's 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're doing Little Nightmares, the 1 and 2 right now, which we love.
So creepy.
Great game.
Random people hanging from the ceiling as you're playing this video game. It's
the
so
last
good.
thing that we got up to was the cook, and he itches his face, and it's a mask of skin, and he's itching under it, and we were like,
awful.
fuck me, man.
Yeah.
There's no jump scares, but it's fucking psychologically fucked, man.
It's so good. So join us.
Absolutely. That's awesome. All right, well, thanks again, you guys, for
Mitch.
joining, and thank you all for listening to another episode of The Terror Table. We'll see you next time.